this video we're going to talk about how to repeat or how to convert a repeating decimal to a fraction. And we talked about this a little bit in class. I told you the shortcut, but today I'm actually going to show you how to do it. So when you see a line over a digit or a sequence of digits, it's called bar notation. And this signifies that the number is a repeating decimal. You might see something that looks like this, where you just have the bar over one number or over multiple numbers. The way we would write it would be 0.1777 if it looked like this, or 0.454545, and so on. And again, this is called bar notation, and it signifies a repeating decimal. So how do we convert it? And again, I told you in class a little shortcut, and I told you I would teach you why later, so now is later. So there are some steps that we have to follow when we do it. So here they are. If we want to convert 0.5 repeating or 5/10 repeating to a fraction, here's what we do. First, we're going to set our decimal to equal an x. In other words, I'm going to say x equals 5/10 repeating. Next, I'm going to multiply my decimal by a power of 10 to move the decimal point. So I'm going to say 10 times x, which will give me 10x, and then I'm going to do 10 times 5/10, which is going to give me 10x equals 5.5 repeating. Remember, when you multiply something times 10, all it does is move your decimal point over. Okay, next I want to subtract our original equation, or this equation, from the new equation. Well, our new equation was 10x equals 5.5 repeating, and our original equation was x equals 0.5. So what we get is 9x equals 5, because when we subtracted, these two would cancel, so that goes away. 5 minus 0 gave us 5, and 10x minus, remember, there's an understood 1 right there, 10x minus 1x gave us 9x. So now we're going to solve our equation for x. So if we have 9x equals 5, to solve for x, this is a one-step equation, divide each side by 9, we get x equals 5/9. The last step is to check and make sure your fraction is reduced. Well, in this case, 5/9 is simplified, so we're done. This is our answer. So these are the 5 steps you follow in order to convert a repeating decimal. So let's look at some more. Okay, so this time we're going to convert 0.83 to a fraction, but this time notice my bar notation, this bar is only above the 3, so it gets a little more difficult this time. So step 1, set it equal to x. So I said x is equal to 0.83 with the 3 repeating. Okay, step 2, multiply it times the power of 10. I have 2 powers of 10. Why is that? Well, when I multiplied it times 10x, I moved my decimal over 1 time, so now I have 8.3 repeating. But remember, I have to go back and do that subtraction to try and make my repeating decimal disappear. But when I try to subtract this, and if I do 8.3 repeating, my decimal's not going to line up. If I try to subtract this isn't going to line up. My repeating decimal's not going to go away. So I can't just multiply it times 1x. So I'm going to try multiplying it by 100x. So now, if I multiply it by 100x, I have 2 zeros. My decimal's moving over twice. Look what I have here. My decimals will line up. So sometimes you have to do equivalent equations. You can't just use your new. So now I can go on to step 3. So I'm going to take my 100x, which was 83.3, minus my 10x, which was 8.3, and now I can subtract. So my 3 repeating here, my 3 repeating here will cancel. I can do 83 minus 8, which gives me 75, and 100x minus 10x gives me 90x. There's step 3. I know you're probably a little confused on what happened there. The more we do, the more clear it becomes. Okay, so we have 90x equals 75. Now, here's that one-step equation. We're just going to solve for x. 90x divided by 90 equals 75 over 90. Now, step 5, remember, is this simplified? No, 75 over 90 is not simplified. They both end in a 5 and a 0. We know it can be simplified by 5, but there's actually a bigger factor, which is 15. So our answer here should be that x equals 5/6. All right, so let's do a couple more. Let's look at more where there's only one repeating decimal. All right, here they are. Convert, and I'm going to draw a line here so you can see it's two separate problems. Convert 17/100ths with a repeating 7 to a fraction. So for step 1, remember x equals 0.17 repeating. Okay, now let's start multiplying it by a power of 10. So step 2, if I say 10x, I'm going to get this 1.7 repeating. But look, I'm going to have the same problem I did before. If I try to subtract my new equation and my original equation, my decimals are not going to line up. Remember, my goal when I do my subtraction is to get rid of that repeating decimal. So I have to try again. So I'm going to multiply times 100. If I do 100x, I'm going to get 17.7 repeating. Now I can line up those decimals. See, there's one number on that side of the decimal. So I'm going to do step 3, 100x minus 10x. Alright, now life gets easier. Cancel this out. What does this become? 17 minus 1 gives me 16. 100 minus 10 gives me 90x. We're running out of space. Now, here's that one-step equation. 90x equals 16. Remember, inverse operation. Divide both sides by 90. Is that simplified? No. Both can be divided by 2. And I'm going to get 8 over 45. Alright, so let's work out one more. Okay, step 1. Set it equal to x. That's the easy part. Okay, step 2. Multiply by a power of 10. Remember, you're trying to get something in front of the decimal. So, step 2. 10x gives me 1 decimal place over. 1 repeating. Didn't do it. So I do 100x. Moves it over another place. So I'm going to get 0.1 repeating. So now I'm going to try 1000x. That will give me one more place, and that will give me 1.1 repeating. So, are you seeing the pattern yet? Here, this went to the thousandths position, and to get what I needed, I had to multiply by 1000x. In this one, it went to the hundredths position, and to get what I needed, I multiplied by 100x. If you look back at example 2, it also went to the hundredths position, and I multiplied by 100x. So the pattern that you're hopefully seeing is that however many places it goes over, that's what you actually have to multiply by. So now that I'm going to go to my subtraction step, I'm going to do 1000x minus, I'm going to do my next closest equivalent equation of 100x. Okay, here's my repeating decimals. These will cancel. I'm going to get 900x equals 1. Okay, so I'm at my one-step equation part here of 900x. Divide both sides by 900. And I learn that x equals 1 over 900. All right, we'll practice some more tomorrow.